Welcome to Guerrilla Discipleship. I'm your host, Kevin Baker. If you were with us last week, we started a two-part series where we talked about what it looks like to transition a more traditional legacy church and to use the church or to see the church as a catalyst for disciple-making movement. And so we're talking about our experience here at Oakdale Church. I had a chance to speak with some other catalysts from across the nation. And so glad you're back. I hope you enjoyed part one, and let's get right into part two. If you're still leading a church and you want to transition it to DMM, to more of a disciple-making movement in some way, people are going to leave. That's just going to happen. You're not going to service what they want, what they came for. You've changed on who they are. But here's what we have found. This has been astounding. We gave up trying to build our church, right? We just said, okay, we're going to build the kingdom. Forget what's going on here. But we've had people coming. The people who are new to our church are more excited about disciple making than the people who have been here. Because the reason they came is somewhere in the community, somebody said, oh my gosh, this church is talking about making disciples. This church is talking about training people to go out in the community. I've heard so-and-so. And so they're like, that's what I've been looking for. And so it's really been kind of amazing what's happening in terms of who's coming to our church and just how they're engaging and they're coming and getting engaged right away. Some of the stories are people who have been here like 3 weeks and they'll just say, you know what, I came here for this reason. Here's what I've been doing. And it's kind of amazing. There is a deep spiritual hunger in the world. I think we all know that. People are hungry. I think one of the reasons I love Discovery Bible Study Method so much is that people are spiritually hungry, but they're tired of Christians telling them what to believe. They do want to discover it. I really do think there's power in that. Here's the crazy thing. Church people are spiritually hungry too. And church people are tired of hearing preachers tell them what to believe. And so if we can teach them, or we can help them to begin to have their own discovery. And here's the other thing that I think we've found. They want to get beyond 2 Timothy 3:5, but they don't know how to voice that. You all know 2 Timothy 3:5, right? They had the form of godliness, but they denied its power. Church people are hungry for power encounters. Church people are hungry. And I mean, some of that, of course, is just they want the signs and wonders maybe in ways that aren't that great, but they want their faith to be alive. And we've made it an academic exercise. And when you begin to help them find out what it's like to actually learn one thing, do one thing, share one thing, when they begin to get into that, they're like, this is what I've been longing for my whole life. This feels like church to me. And so there is a deep hunger, at least we're seeming to find it. There's a deep hunger for something beyond church as usual. I think the reason why so many people are leaving church is they're done with church as it is, church as we've kind of constructed it. And so there's a deep hunger there. It seems like we keep tapping into that, or God's tapping into that. And so don't discount. I mean, we all know this. Church people aren't necessarily Jesus people. But so there's a mission field in the church. One of the things God said to me years ago after he called me, or I was willing to at least listen to his invitation, his call on my life for pastoral ministry, was basically that very thing. Kevin, the church is one of the most needed mission fields in the culture today. And so it is a place where I think people want to be taught how to be disciples and how to be disciple makers. It means a change in our whole church culture. The pandemic for us gave us a way to make, one of the things that happened for us was we had the chance to change the culture because we were in the middle of the pandemic. As the pandemic was basically winding down, every one of us in the leadership team was like, we can't go back. I hope these people don't think we're going back. We're not going back to who we were before. We're not going back to that model. And we did have some folks that I think were disappointed that we didn't go back, but we'd had enough time with the pandemic for them to go, holy mackerel, this is something. I'm loving what this is, and we want to see more of that. The other thing I think that we've learned is, or another thing is, where you are probably isn't where you're going to stay. When we first got trained, we thought, well, man, there's no way that this church that I'm pastoring right now is 222 years old. But we are leaving the denomination that we have been a part of for 222 years. We just voted to do that. We're moving out of that. And while we thought that we were going to probably at best, because after we got trained, we began to investigate other streams of DMM, trying to figure out what all was out there. And we ran into Roy Moran. We began to, we read his book. We began to interview Roy, and we thought maybe hybrid is where we want. But we're at the place where I would say, I think the spectrum that we have calls it transition. I would call it leveraged, that we are leveraging everything toward disciple making. And, but we never thought we would be here. And where we are right now is there is a very high possibility that we will relaunch somewhere in the future based on the vision that God's given us. But we're just trusting him to lead us there in the right time. And so I guess what I would say is hold everything lightly, because where God starts you is probably not where he's going to end you. And that's okay. That's just be used to the fact that the journey is going to take you places you didn't think that you might go. That probably ought to go along with the fact that you also, God's inviting us to be willing to sacrifice almost everything that we thought we might need to not sacrifice in order to really be usable in his hands, which is, constantly an issue. The last thing I would say is God, I think, just keeps showing us everything and anything can be a possibility and an opportunity for disciple making. Here's a story just from today. The county that I live in, like, counties across the culture, across our country, they have decided to push diversity issues into the elementary schools, and there's no opt-out for parents. So parents are upset, like, wait a minute, you're teaching kids things that I don't want my kids exposed to, that's too young, and you're not letting us have an opt-out moment. We can't find out about it. So that's raised some issue for parents here. And so we had some parents asking us, and I think they wanted the church to begin to wield its power. And I don't know exactly what they meant, but we said we would be glad to meet with them. So I met with a group of parents yesterday to hear their concerns and to basically just kind of have an idea. And we began to talk about what do you do when the culture is just heading farther and farther away? Well, today, we had good conversation yesterday. We had more parents come today. And so I trained them how to do a DBS and basically said, listen, the way to contradict or the way to protect and influence your kids is to stop letting the church and somebody else disciple your kids. You disciple your kids. And I'm going to give you a tool. Because what influence you have in your home is going to outstretch any influence outside of your home. And so I sat with a bunch of parents. Again, there were parents. Yesterday was parents mostly from our church. Today, it was a bunch of parents from the community, because those parents went home and said, hey, I really think you might be interested in what we're talking about in terms of, their kids they're fired up about it. So today I gave them, we did a DBS together. I gave them, most of the people that were there today were moms. And I said, listen, I've given you a bunch of scripture sets that I would like to encourage you to do with your husbands, to do this as a couple. But then I've also given you a lot of scripture sets to do as a family. And then I talked about how to do we did a discovery Bible study and talked about how to do them. So the crazy thing is there are always kinds of opportunities to help people understand how to become disciple makers and how to take their own questions and their own struggles and say, hey, Jesus has an answer to that. And let me teach you how to obey his word, because that's where the power is going to be. And then we'll move forward through that. So I think I left plenty of time there. Those are just some of the things that God has been teaching us. We're humbled by this. I think what I would say in sort of just closing this out is, for my 30 some years of ministry, I have often felt and seen how heavy the burden is on pastors. Most of the pastors that I know, and I think the majority of that in my own life and the majority of that in the pastors that I've traveled with, is that we have been trying to do ministry out of our own strength. And I think one of the best things that disciple making has really helped us to see is only God can build his kingdom. And if we will just obey the principles that he's given us, we get to sit back and watch what he's going to do. And there's just joy in ministry as opposed to burden in ministry. And the heaviness becomes joy, and the difficulty becomes freedom. And so I'm just grateful that God happenstanced us into disciple making movement training. And I love spending every Wednesday with you all. We have a vision to see the whole DC area saturated with disciple making. And so we're building partnerships like never before. Many of the folks on this call are a part of that. I don't take credit for that. I'm just a part of that. And man, it is really just amazing what we can do when we begin to see. Even today, I had a training. Grace is a part of that training. We have training, small training, probably maybe the smallest training we've ever done. But it's probably one of the best trainings we've ever done. And you can see we did lesson 4 today, and I can see the paradigm shifts. I can see and hear the life change happening in these people that are in our training right now. And it's just, like I said, it's no longer a burden. It's not heavy lifting, because God is doing the work as we just pass on what God has given us. So thanks so much for letting me share with you all today. Well, I sure hope you were able to glean some truth from what we've been talking about, how the principles that we have seen, the things that we've learned, we're really in this together. I believe God is getting us prepared in our nation, in the West, to see a movement of disciple making like we haven't experienced in our lifetime. And so thank you for being a part of Guerrilla Discipleship. As always, my email is kbaker@oakdale.church. Let me know how we can help resource you. Thank you for being a part of the Guerrilla Discipleship family. Please share these videos with anyone that you think might be interested, and let us know how we can serve you better. God bless. See you next week.